So everybody listen, we got a small gathering at first. I was going to do something kind of fun to set the tone. My whole thing since I started Socrates Cafe is whether one person comes, as is the case, Ceci Linen, is with my wife. She came to one and now we're married, so obviously it's a meat market. Um, Ceci and I met on August 17th, 1996. And we found out we were kindred spirits, even though I'm a gringo from Southeast Virginia. And she was an activist living as a teacher in an indigenous community and spoke a Mayan tongue. But we found out our ends were the same pretty much. And she was with me from the very beginning, which is so cool. And but I wanted to play something just for a second. Everybody just bear with me. I'm so grateful for you here. Can you hear it? Can you hear it?
It's a bed-in, folks.
We thought about this for months. This is the best possible, most functional and effective way of promoting and protesting against violence that our minds combined could think of. This is an alternative to violence. Is to stay in bed and grow your hair. Do it any way, I say, any way you like, but peacefully. Nobody's ever given peace a complete chance. Gandhi tried it, Martin Luther King tried it, but they were shot.
Think peace, it's the only way. Less words and more peace.
What indications have you had that you're about to be crucified?
I say we're all about to be crucified if we don't do something about war.
We tell American kids how beautiful democracy is, and you got to ask yourself the question, if democracy is so damn good, why do we got to go all over the world trying to ram it down people's throat with a gun?
I think the only way to do it is Gandhi's way. And that's non-violent, passive, positive, or whatever they called it those days.
And the day we make our democracy work right for the first time, that's the first day we put the guns down, because anything good, you don't have to force on people to steal it.
That's Muhammad Ali, and I'm going to share you the link on the chat to that. So it's the anniversary of John Lennon's birthday. Does anybody know exactly how old he would be? 84? 86? Of course, he called it like he saw it, and of course he died a very, very violent death. I'm so grateful to those of you who took time out of your very busy and hairy days to take part. Sweetie, where's the chat function so I can send them the link to this? As everybody knows, I'm totally inept. Where? What are those things? Oh, how do I get rid of that? Oh, ouch, you're scratching. Okay, I'm going to send you all the link. What I'd like to do, and we're going to do a couple things a little bit different, and but I know everybody's on a harried schedule, most of us, and so ML, can you turn on your video, because it's really good if we can see each other. It's really, really, really good for these kinds of things. Otherwise, it's just face to face is what my initiatives are all about. I've tried it using avatars. I've tried it using just sound. It doesn't work. We have to ideally be able to see each other. That's one of the things. Twitter X calls itself the public square, and maybe it is of insults and such. And I certainly find it useful for many things. But I firmly believe more so than ever that somehow we have to see each other face to face. And it honestly didn't occur to me till the pandemic that I should be doing Zoom dialogues so people from everywhere could gather and take part. And I'm truly blessed by your presence and the gift of your time. Can we take about 30 seconds before we do a couple of other things and just have a half a minute of silence for the tens and tens and tens of untold thousands whose lives have been shattered, the innocents whose lives have been shattered, caught in the crosshairs of conflicts not of their making, fleeing violence, caught in the crosshairs of violence, their families shattered forevermore. It's why my grandparents immigrated through Ellis Island from Niceros in the South Aegean because of Mussolini's minions had taken it over. And so it's why my father became president of his chapter of the Greek Hellenic Progressive Educational Association, Newport News, because he was a victim of KKK racism when they settled at first in Hopewell, Virginia. to do something peaceful out of violence, out of many kinds of violence. So can we just take 30 seconds of silence, please? Thank you, everybody. Ceci, did you want to do something or not really?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, okay. Ceci and I have been doing this 20 years. This is a Socrates Cafe, but it's an iteration called Peace Cafe. Because it's John Lennon's birthday. This is the second one we've done. We did the previous one 4 years ago. And because of many things that are swirling in the outer world and people's family lives, including mine, we felt it was a really good time to revisit this question. And I know I started Socrates Cafe in 1996 out of concerns about polarization. And once again, not just nationally, globally, but within families, among people who've been friends in high school, that they've unfriended each other after friendships of 50 years over differences over who should be president, differences over abortion rights or lack thereof, differences over Second Amendment interpretations, many things. And so I thought it was time to revisit this.
Okay. So I have my computer in mute so that we don't echo. So I'm gonna use Chris's. Okay. So I just invite you, if you wish, just to land, just arrive and just let go everything else for a minute and just try to be present in this moment. You can perhaps put your hands on your lap, and your back straight without leaning on your seat. So it's a way for you to be more alert and pay attention to your breathing without changing anything, just like we can let go, and with that, let go of any hurry, any events that may had happened or that are gonna happen afterwards, and just set your intention into taking part fully in this dialogue with your whole presence, and perhaps with the intention of seeing how we are connected more than we are divided, and trying to connect to ourselves, to what is important to us, and realize that we are together in this space, in this earth, in our homes, and that we all depend on one another, to our food supplies, the way we take care or not take care of our homes and our neighborhoods. And just place in your mind perhaps a moment of your life where you felt at peace with yourself, with others, and see how that lands in your body. What responses there are, how you feel, how that makes you feel. And with that intention in mind, we can start our gathering.
Thank you, Ceci. We've never done that before. It just occurred to me shortly before Ceci's extraordinary mindfulness meditation facilitator, and even has a certificate for doing so in schools, and made a real difference in children's lives from a rough public school that she did this at on a regular basis. And so, so let me just remind people who that Socrates Cafe, this iteration we call Peace Cafe. You know, if you want to do political harangues and polemics and diatribes, there's plenty of places and spaces to do that. This is more of a thoughtful, philosophical exploration, contemplation that is guided by me a little bit, and that's supposed to steer us down some pathways we typically wouldn't in other sorts of exchanges and confabs. If you want to, it'd be great if you introduce yourself the first time, say anything you want about yourself, but you don't have to. It's just great to see everybody's faces and to have the gift of your time. I want you to just take this question without any preconceived notions at first, and then we might guide it in some other ways as we go on over the next 45 or so minutes. So I'm just going to throw that question out there for you. How do we give peace a chance? What are your initial responses to that? You might want to use the hand raising icon, but with this small of a group, we don't necessarily have to, as long as we're respectful of one another. How do we give peace a chance?
Well, I guess the thing that comes to mind is, what would giving peace a chance look like? Like what does that entail? Is it good?
Yeah, so what for you,
Oh
don't
my
worry
God.
about anyone else, what does that entail?
I guess it entails like, we've never really been peaceful. So how would we know what that would look like? Like, there's moments of peace and like worldwide peace, like without wars, but it's like there's always something going on. So it's like I don't know like what that would look like, because I've never seen absolute peace. No one has.
Okay, but what would just, you say there's, little moments of peace. What do those look like?
I guess worldwide, if we use like history, they usually mean like when there's no major global conflicts going on, but that doesn't necessarily mean like everything's peaceful. There's still stuff going on, obviously. It's just
Hmm.
in the grand scale of things, there's nothing major enough to be like, I can't even say a major concern.
Mhm.
You
Okay,
know what I mean?
yeah, sure I do. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Anybody else want to just build on that? Just
I
jump.
think to play on something that Isaac questioned was, how do we even want to define peace? Is peace merely the absence of conflict? If that's all peace is, then it's probably a little bit easier to imagine than peace being a level of comfort inside of that, or peace being peace being peace. That doesn't work out as a definition at all. Or peace being fulfillment in some way, in ease. So I guess the first question I have is, when you say give peace a chance, what are we trying to do? Are we just trying to
Mhm.
stop the conflict, or is it something, or be without conflict is what I'll say, or is it a broader sense
Right.
of being?
That's right, and thank you for that. And we could always just go to a dictionary and read a definition, but what this is about in part is values exploration, because I would think there's good forms of peace and not good forms, the good kinds of conflicts. I would dare say everything I've done, uh, every creative act I've done is born of conflict, interior and exterior, typically somehow entwined. I don't think I would have ever written a book if it wasn't for some conflicts within and without at the same time that tend to, help guide other people to channel things. So at times it makes me more peaceful, meditative, contemplative. And then I reach a platform where I'm dissatisfied again. On the other hand, looking at different scales, what I wish that there was a world where people could, personally, I'm just speaking personally, where people could maybe freely cross borders and, when stuff's going down where they are, because there may come a global catastrophe. Look at all the hurricanes. We might want to go south of the border or north of the border someday ourselves, and we might wish there were far more open borders than there are now. But I think I equate peace in some ways with sense of openness, of there but for the grace of God go I, that let's make sure we create a kind of playing field where there's some free flow and where we see each other sort of on equal level, whether we're desperately poor, filthy rich, or somewhere in between. I don't know. Those are just some initial thoughts. That Chris, you made me think, is all peace good? It's like Strange New World. You take a pill and you're, suddenly you don't think about anything. Everything's hunky-dory. That's not the kind of peace I want. I guess I want a kind of peace with conflicts that lead to more loving, creative acts, for lack of a better way of putting it. Okay, I'll shut up. Others, what do you think? Emil, do you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris. Sorry, I usually don't, intentionally, I don't prefer to put the camera on, but that's okay. How can I give you, how can do I give peace a chance? Well, firstly, for me, peace is to be in peace, internally, externally, with the neighbors, with everything. For me, peace is, for example, finishing all of these wars and wars in families as well. Marriage is broken, social breakage, and all of those kind of things. And I think maybe a couple of things. One is to be in peace myself. If I manage to be in peace with myself and within myself, maybe I have a better chance to help others be in peace. How could I help others? Well, maybe being kind, being maybe a better human, maybe listening from their point of view rather than from my point of view, reacting in a more human way, different ways. And finally, maybe if I do those two things, being peace in myself and being peaceful with others and to others, maybe I can manage to consistently and consciously create peace for the whole world. And maybe that way, one day we will see the peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, how do you do that in your own life? Do you wake up in the morning consistently, try to put yourself in that mind and heart that you're trying to emanate a peaceful outlook and an open sort of mode to what others have to say, even if you find it disagreeable?
Well, in my case, I strive for that, yes. Of course, I'm in the same boat of this life where there is so much fear and so much negativity everywhere. But yes, I strive to be peaceful myself, firstly, especially when I wake up in the morning. I usually take 5-10 minutes to purposely be in peace. And secondly, I do my best to sustain that, which is very challenging because there is a lot of challenges during the day and this life. But consciousness, being conscious, reminding me every time I react, say, oh, maybe next time I'll breathe twice. Breathing is very good. It helps me.
How did you learn that?
I think a school of life. I was born in a very isolated village in Latin America where there was nothing, no hospitals, no police, a lot of struggle, and sometimes no breakfast, sometimes um, no shoes, of course, certainly, and violence and other things. And I managed to study very hard and progress a little bit, travel a little bit, few countries, work abroad, work with corporations as well. And I managed to sit down this table with some of very high net worth individuals. And during that trajectory, by experience, I learned and I saw a lot of things in education as well, universities and so on. Things that I learned previously, for example, from my parents or from my friends, I had to dislearn. And now I am in the process where, for me, being in peace is almost extremely important. Extremely important. And I'm being kind of, I could say, committed, but of course I am in the same house. There is a lot of reactions and everything everywhere. I just do my best and try to be conscious. But I learned that from experience, from education, mostly from external education as well, coaches and things. But doesn't mean that I know more than anyone else, of course.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Emilio, I love the word consciousness. I've always used the word intentionality, being very intentional in what I want to do and what I want to be, and have a goal for every interaction in my day. But your consciousness actually, I think, elevates that, and I really like that. So I'm going to steal it. So thank you very much for that. And talk about being more conscious in what I want to do and my interactions, rather than just an intentionality, so that it doesn't feel motivated or purposeful, but rather conscious in elevating where I want to be. So thank you. I love that outlook.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Some others. Thank you so much. Roger, can we hear you now?
No.
Roger, I think you're cursing. I don't know. No, I'm kidding.
Roger, one thing, if you're having troubles, you might be able to call in on the phone number and just use your cell phone for that. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but we've had to do that from time to time with Zoom. Zoom is just evil.
Maybe just logging out and in again.
But yes,
Yeah, true.
that definitely.
You can always turn your computer off, turn it back on. That seems to work in all things IT.
You know, the old turn off, turn on thing, actually, for some reason.
Or just log out and log in again.
But also, just if you have the app on your phone, to just call in, Chris.
Yeah, well, normally there's a phone number that goes with the meeting, and you can.
Right, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Roger, there is. If you can just stay hooked there and then call in on the phone number that's on the invitation.
I don't think we had the.
Did we? Oh, I bet you I didn't put it. So just call it out loud, because Roger, so he can. I bet you I didn't put it. I think I usually cut that stuff off. It's kind of a. No quiero desviar el diálogo. ¿Puedes ver en el tuyo? ¿O no? Oh man, I'm so sorry. You know, I guess I'm thinking, you know, since my dad passed under unpeaceable circumstances 13 years ago, it still seems like yesterday, as those who are cursed to be my Facebook friends know, and LinkedIn contacts. I find that I'm much more, especially around the time between September and, you know, and time of his death, I'm much more, I have much more of a hair trigger temperament. Things that wouldn't usually have bothered me. Now I have the kind of this horrible ability to just snap at people in a way I never would have before. And I've seen a real pattern of it as I become more conscious of it. On the other hand, the last three books I've written, including this one I've just finished, Cafe for Shakespeare, I would have never written them if it hadn't been for what happened. There's not the slightest chance. It wouldn't have even occurred to me. So I'm a curious mixture of the peaceable and the in my personal interactions. Not so. Luckily, I have people who hang in there with me and give me the benefit of the doubt. And I'm wondering this whole thing about benefit of the doubt. I mean, what if we, do some of you sometimes make wrong assumptions about people? They say something that pushes your button, but they didn't mean to. And do you try to get clarification, or do you do what I too often do and just spat off the handle, and so makes a bad situation worse?
A
Anybody?
friend of mine talks about the trust bank. That as you're in a relationship and you're interacting with the individuals there, they're making deposits into the trust bank with you, and you're making deposits in the trust bank with them. And from time to time, you screw up and you say something stupid, and they make a withdrawal. And the key is in his teachings is to talk about making sure that the deposits always outweigh the withdrawals. But you and I both know occasionally that doesn't happen. Sometimes it happens very early in a relationship, and the deposits hasn't even cleared yet, much less equaled it. So it is a little bit harder. And in those cases, it's easier for me, rather than to get angry. I and this isn't any better, to be honest with you. I become dismissive. You're as important. Your comment is as important to me as you are. I've just met you. That level of importance isn't there. I'm not going to allow that to upset me because you don't matter to me yet. And I don't know that's been better. It may be worse, to be honest with you. But that seems to be how I look at, especially in those new relationships. But in long relationships, it's that trust and be able to go back and forth and go back to them and say, you said this. This is what I heard. And those aren't always easy conversations. My wife and I long ago learned we have sort of code words to use of, okay, that was not what I meant to say, and you interpreted it. I understand why you interpreted it that way. That's not at all what I meant. So let's stop and back up. We've had to learn that so that it doesn't spiral very quickly, because we're both very strong-willed and
Really?
So yeah, I know it's hard to believe. I know. I made a mistake of marrying a woman smarter than me, and that just is a very painful thing
Me
to do.
too.
So yeah, so it is. But that's that trust that we build over time to be able to say, okay, let's stop and back up.
And does it work?
Yeah, 99% of the time. Yeah. No one's perfect. We all have bad days. Something happens at work and she comes home angry and the trust bank has been depleted and I didn't even talk to her all day. And same with me, right? I had a bad interview or a bad client meeting and she comes in, dinner's not perfect. And all of a sudden I'm upset about that for no reason at all. Whenever, hell, I might have cooked it, so it's just, it doesn't make any sense at all. But the majority of the time, yes, I think being able to acknowledge and be mindful of, or conscious, thank you, Emil, of where we are in our trust bank and our levels really is helpful.
That's wonderfully put. Says you haven't said anything. What do you think, sweetie? I say sweetie in a non-sexist.
Yeah, well, I think the key to me is also awareness, because and for that we need to have that space with ourselves. And I'm the first to not have those spaces. It's like from 6 a.m. I'm running from thing to thing, and in my head there's 100 things that need to be done, and rather than first have that space to make space for peace, right? To make space to get that intention of non-reactive, like a response is different than reaction. And when we are tired or, just as Chris said, something happened, then we react rather than giving that space to respond in a different way. And yeah, and again, misinterpretations and things like that, which happen all the time, you know. We live in a city where drivers are crazy.
I mean, if you beep at them, they'll get out of their car and confront you just for beeping because they're about to dent your car. They'll get out and come to your window.
But I feel like it's almost as humanity, we live in this state of alertness rather, you know, just like defensiveness, and we're ready to attack, right? And so if we don't have that space, that ML, is that, how do you, is that como
ML is correct, yes.
Ok. Pronuncias ML, así?
Sí, sí, gracias.
If we don't have that space that ML talks about, I mean, you know, we're in a reactive setting rather than trying to give that space of waiting, pausing before just jumping out at somebody's throat, right?
Yeah, I love Viktor Frankl.
Yes.
In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, talks about, you know, in the difference between stimulus and response is that moment. And in that moment is the only true freedom a human has. It can never, ever be taken away. And that being able to capture that in a way that is mindful, intentional, and conscious is really where that freedom lies. And I love that concept. It extends very well into the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess if we all took responsibility of our reactions rather than, you know, like putting it in something or somebody or the environment or whatever. Also, the Dalai Lama said that if we taught 8-year-olds to meditate, like all generations, right, we will have peace. And I think it's because of, I mean, I think what he is referring to is giving that space of inner peace so that we can respond from a different place.
Hi, Sandy. Thanks for taking part.
Hi, thank you for having me.
What are your thoughts?
I think, you know, kind of bouncing off of what everyone has said a little bit. And I'm thinking back to your comment in particular about the intricacy of responding, like being more prone to respond to that to people that you're closer to, even if you know, hold that value of treating people with kindness and peace and everything. It's always interesting to me because I work for a domestic violence shelter, so this comes up frequently. And then also just I wonder if for people who, when you get very immersed in ethics and start paying attention to kind of establishing values that are in line with this, if it maybe you become like slightly more tuned into things that resemble those types of injustices, maybe. And then it's like a misplaced, I don't know. I think it's very interesting. It could be like, because you feel safe with those people, you're more prone to expressing things that read that way, but it's still an incorrect assessment and not a positive response to lean into.
You know, I when I get up in the morning, I have this sort of OCD habit of checking the news. You know, I check ArabNews.com, I check TimesOfIsrael.com, check Fox News, New York Times, and it's like just and then I check what's going on where my dad's family settled after immigrating from Greece in Tampa, Florida. It's getting ready to get hit by the kind of hurricane that it got hit by in 1921, a couple of years before they settled there, where it was just a very small population, but it devastated. I'm thinking there's lots of things going on that I have trouble separating them. I'm not sure if I should separate them with what's going on with, you know, conflicts that exist in families, conflicts that have existed among my friends to the point where they unfriended each other, friends of over 50 years because of differences over Trump, Biden, Harris, or over abortion rights was the one that just really took my breath away. They've been beloved friends for over a half a century. And I said, why aren't y'all friends anymore? They said, we disagreed over abortion. And so I'm having trouble teasing the global apart from the very, very personal and intimate circles in my life. And is it because they're so inextricably intertwined right now at a scale that's hasn't happened before, or is it just my way of shirking off responsibility? Roger, do we have you now?
Or he can use the chat.
Oh, you can use the chat. That's exactly right. No, we can't hear you. No, we would need you to be able to phone in or something. I mean, I think
I think he is muted.
no,
No.
he's not. That's the thing. He's taken part in many of ours wonderfully, but for some reason it's not working today. Does anyone else see sort of a uptick, a spike in conflicts on a really, really local, intimate scale, and what's going on a grander scale, or is it just me?
No, I think I see that too, because it's like we see these problems like, and they're very broad problems like abortion and whatnot, and people take it personally because I think there's like, I guess they think there's a moral right or wrongness to it, and that if when someone judges that thing right or wrong, it sort of plays into the content of the character, and I think that's why people get so sort of stuck up or offended when and it could break friendships, like you said, and it's the whole thing.
Interesting.
Isaac, you are absolutely right. I think society as a whole has bought into the narrative of moral absolutism.
What do you mean?
You disagree with me, you're the devil. And or even if you don't disagree, you just don't agree with me. That's the same thing, and you're anti this. Just because I don't support it doesn't mean I'm anti that. Kind of mentality doesn't exist anymore. And a lot of that, I believe, has been driven by politics that have been far more in our face with the constant media. So not just mainstream media, but social media and everything goes along with it. We're bombarded a lot more than we have been. Isaac, probably I don't want to judge too much, but I'm guessing before you were even born, whenever we were stuck with a phone that was attached to a wall, there weren't conversations around abortion rights unless the person we were talking to was dealing with that. The conversation was about other things happening in the neighborhood or our kids or where we're going to go to see a movie or whatever. It's completely different mentality than it is today, when this absolutism is driven down our face. And a lot of it you see a lot, especially in the PAC commercials in politics. So the political action committees, they seem to be driving this absolutism narrative. Like, if you don't agree with me, then you're definitely evil. And we're buying into that. And it's feeding this. Well, I used to believe it was a continuum. Now I just believe it's a circle that meets on a backside of it. But but you're absolutely right. It is far more in our face, and it's very, very difficult not to personalize ideals that were once almost impossible for us to imagine personalizing. Internalizing the idea of whether or not the border should have a wall is beyond comprehension. Would have been beyond comprehension to me 20 years ago, even though the issue may have been just as pronounced. It just wasn't something that we ever would have thought one way or the other about, unless you were faced with that in some way. Whereas I've never, well, I guess I have been to the border, but not in any meaningful way. But I know I've seen narratives on both sides of it in ways that I never would have seen any other way, with this onslaught of information everywhere you look. There's something. There isn't an avenue now where it is. So yeah, I agree.
You know, I just gave a talk in the inaugural series started by their new president at a university in West Virginia on civil discourse. And but throughout the day before my presentation, I visited about 6 classrooms and then met with student leaders and such. And throughout the day, it was remarkable. There were these flashpoints. One was on whether the COVID vaccine actually creates more deaths than it saves. One was over immigration, the bad eggs we're letting in versus those who favor more open borders. One was simply between Harris and Trump. But, you know, this is 50-minute classrooms, and I failed miserably I couldn't figure out a way to, in that condensed time frame, they were just in attack mode, and that's all there was to it. And I wonder, you know, it made me think about my high school friends who've differed and then just, you know, severed ties over abortion rights. And it's like, you know, just to take pause and say, well, what's the goal here? You're not going to change each other's minds. In fact, you're going to dig your heels in more than ever. But can we nonetheless just ask questions out of curiosity just to know one another's stories? You know, so many people are used to saying something provocative, hot buttony, and just starting a sort of a series of monologues around this person's statement. But if we really can just listen to what the story is behind someone's authentic view, that in my experience, that in and of itself can be transformative. You know, that you may never go a step further. Never. My Greek relatives, you know, I go to my family's island of Niceros. There was just, last time I was there were the elections. And, you know, they screamed and yelled at each other. He's a fascist. How can you vote for him? And they love each other. They would never even think about such comments, keeping them from loving each other and hanging out. They just disagree politically. It's okay. So I just wonder if what kind of lessons can we impart to ourselves and to others in our very modest way, because it's so easy to point the finger, blame at everybody else. What lessons can we impart in our quotidian lives to try to be the peaceful change that we might want to see at certain levels, certain areas around the world? What, if anything, or is it just we can't do anything? It's too far above us. And
well, I agree what everyone had said in terms of this is a point of time where there is just so much fear and so much negativity in this world, from switching the TV, killings and wars, and even reading the newspapers, getting out of the door, people reacting, and I feel it's very high margin at the moment. So what kind of lessons, what could I do for that? Well, maybe there is something called compassion and empathy that I think Cecilia already spoke about that. Even love, but this love that is this feeling, this kind of powerful thing that we can utilize as a knowledge, if I could say that, or as something to empower myself to use my own power instead of letting my emotions just navigate and dictate and control my life. By the way, something that this traditional education never teach us, how to manage our own emotions, how to be responsible for our emotions. And our emotions, especially those coming from external factors, are the ones that make us be totally inhuman. Instead, maybe I can focus within me, be peaceful within me, be empathetic within me, be kind within me, and maybe that way I can externalize that towards others rather than the other way around, going out and waiting what you tell me, and then I take it personal, of course, and then I react, and then so on. Maybe another thing that I could do is maybe not taking anything personal, really. Understanding that whatever I say in this meeting is just a reflection of myself. It's nothing to do with you. And maybe whenever that person reacts on the street or wherever is the reflection of themselves. Maybe they are having a good day, a bad day or something. Of course, it is easier said than done. But at least if we be aware and we do it intentionally, maybe we can achieve something little by little. And finally, well, maybe applying, being conscious of that, something that we have a heart, we don't only have head. In business, we learn these abilities to sell and to analyze business, and it seems that we always overanalyze things, but we never really put our hearts, our love across. Maybe a little bit like that. No, I'm being a little bit too romantic, maybe. However, I really believe that this world is, in that sense, is very broken. It cannot go higher. We see all the statistics about burnouts, depressions, suicidals, and they are just extremely high when the world lifestyle it should be better than ever. It's challenging to understand.
Well, you've given me something to work on, is to not take things so personally in the wrong way. As my wife can tell you, if somebody says something about her, or, ooh. So I have a lot to work on. I truly do. I think so often I can be a real hypocrite. And I have, but that's one of the reasons I feel even more impassioned to do this, because I always just the wisdom that has been shared among the 7 or 6, not including me, and taking part is just tremendously helpful to me. Roger, do you want to type something in the chat? Because we can't hear you. Do you want to type something in the chat function? It'd be lovely to have your input. It's always so wonderful. Do you see the chat function?
Oh, he logged up.
Oh,
so
let's see
no,
if we-
but he's gonna try to.
Okay. Roger's had an ongoing group in Northern California forever and a day, and years ago he invited me to facilitate their 10-year gathering. And his friend on the East Coast invited me to do the exact same for theirs in Princeton Junction, New Jersey. So it's so amazing to be with people here. Some haven't seen us, Sandy, before. We've emailed. So this is just so wonderful. I truly believe, like I asked my friends who unfriended each other, well, did you talk face to face? And they did not. It was totally by messaging. Ceci and I have, we realize that we're not good WhatsAppers unless we're doing maybe more video, not the messaging thing. It's too easy for things to be misinterpreted and to say thoughtless things. But as soon as the video comes on, it's a different ballgame. Are there exceptions to the rule? Of course there are. Some people love to be on video and push people's buttons and watch them being pushed. But they're the exceptions I have found to that. So some others, anybody? We got about 6 minutes left. Any other thoughts? I'm just so grateful for everyone's presence. I think it helps me move forward with a lot of things.
Just taking a hindsight view to the absolute, what we were saying, absolute something where like someone disagrees with us and we alienate them for it. If we look back in history, right now I'm in history like 310, which is like America, the founding of America and stuff. And basically the way of thinking back then was there's a capital T truth, no questions. This is right, this religion is right, this whatever is right. And if you disagree with that, you're just wrong, and you can be alienated, killed sometimes for that wrongness. And I think like with this conversation, I'm kind of noticing like with our absolute sort of viewpoint where we're alienating people for their viewpoints, it's almost the same thing. It's like history is rewinding and we really have to learn from it,
Absolutely. Wow. Wisdom from our youngest participant. Absolutely. I'm so grateful for that insight. I mean, you know, should we turn a blind eye to the conflicts in the world and focus on just the things within our own backyard and inside our homes, or should we always try to be cognizant of what's going on elsewhere? I mean, as soon as you get online, it's like, oh, World War III is imminent. Does that make you feel impotent, or does it somehow inspire you to try to be a little more of a change, or a little bit of both, or what?
I I think we're inherently selfish. So it's like, unless World War III is going to show up at my front door,
Yeah.
why should I act towards that? And is it a destructive way to think in the sense of humanity as a whole? Yes, but as for like self-preservation, that's a way of thinking. And so I guess what would be a better way of thinking?
What are thank you for that. What do others think?
Well, I feel that there are things in this life that I cannot individually, personally prevent or do. And then if I can prevent a war, for example, firstly, I cannot do anything. So secondly, if I switch the TV and then I cry and I take it myself and take the pain of that, I think that's worse. I bring war to me, from there to me. Maybe the best way is to prevent the TV, I could say, and empathize, of course, be compassionate, do whatever I can to do. If I can help someone, that's okay. If not, I send all my prayers or whatever we believe in. And maybe being better myself, maybe that helps. And another thing is maybe, I don't know, maybe do my best to not support any things that lead to wars. For example, I don't know, I personally don't support governments because I know myself, and well, I have knowledge and I have quite, it's quite clear to me that those wars are because of bigger governments. So I don't support them. And maybe by not supporting that, maybe I do better than crying and telling this story to everyone, and it creates so much fear. And then if someone talks to me and is angry or upset, if I try to listen from their point of view rather than from my own, maybe I can understand that they are upset or they have whatever, trauma or anything. And maybe I can control my emotions that way, be present to what it is. It is nothing I can do, but maybe I can still peaceful. And thank you for having me, by the way.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I consider myself sort of what I would call a progressive libertarian. And one of the very first places I was ever invited was a libertarian university in Guatemala City called Universidad Francisco Marroquín. And they have something called the Liberty Fund, and they've been very influential in my life in ever so many ways ever since. That was 23 years ago that I first went there. But my notions of government tend to probably jibe with yours, but not with maybe everybody here. Roger, can we hear you now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know what I did wrong. I just checked, came back in, and I don't know. It's frustrating. So I feel like I'm part of the meeting, but I feel that I have not been at peace, because when I can't control something that is beyond my ability, or if I'm frustrated, that's when I'm not at peace with myself.
You couldn't communicate. I mean, think about that. The breakdown of communication.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've enjoyed the meeting, so keep it up, keep going.
Well, wait, no. Before we go, just give us a couple of your thoughts about how can we give peace a chance?
Well, I don't know. I've given it some, I never thought of it until this discussion came about, but being at peace has never been a problem for me. It's not something I lose sleep over, and in fact, initially when I heard the term, and I think when John Lennon was singing this song, I think he was probably talking about world peace rather than inner peace.
Yes.
That is a challenge that definitely has a lot of possibilities and a lot of things that can be said, and it seems like it's a hopeless situation based on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for me, being in retirement has been very peaceful. It it takes away the pressure of getting up in the morning and getting on a train and going into New York and having to deal with a lot of unhappy employees. That was not very peaceful. But in retirement, it doesn't. You do have challenges. A lot of things going on, and unfortunately, I hate to bring it up because I don't normally want to talk about personal things, but we had a major tragedy in our life on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day of this year. My eldest son passed away. So that has been very upsetting, and it's kind of changed things, and I haven't really gotten over it yet. We're in a grief group, but I haven't been able to be with a group to express how I feel, and it's something I never expected before. I had my mother and father who passed away, and aunts and uncles, and went to funerals, and that was part of life. But when it's your own son, it's different. It's a different experience, and so I guess from that standpoint, I'm not at peace. So that's my biggest challenge right now, to get past this situation.
I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry. Does anybody?
I hate to sound negative, but it's something that's been on my mind, and
No,
I guess
it's not at all. I'm so glad you shared that. I mean, here I am 13 years after my father's death, and I'm still working my way. I have this very quirky approach of not getting over it, but just channeling it into creative, loving acts. Sometimes it works, and sometimes I fall flat on my face, and I try to reflect and do better. Who's that said, fail, do better, fail better next time, something like that? That's yeah. I'm a work in progress and regress. Roger, thank you so much for that. I'm so glad that we were able to Zoom you in. So everybody, we have on November the 3rd, which is a Sunday, and we haven't set the time yet, but we will. We have what we're calling a Citizens Cafe. And it's not just for Americans by any stretch of the imagination. It's how do we become informed citizens? That will be our gathering. Jefferson was a real believer that we needed to disseminate freely and broadly all the information we could. And some of you are familiar with my book, Constitution Cafe. So it kind of springs from that. But so we're going to have what we're calling a Citizens Cafe on Sunday, November 3rd. Can I just get a poll here? Ceci thinks it's better if we do it earlier in the day. And I thought at first later in the day, but it's a Sunday. Would earlier in the day work
And it's a day where the time changes.
And the day where the time changes. So earlier or later works best for like if you guys were available.
Early is better for me
Early
because
better.
I am currently in Amsterdam, yes. So it's midnight here.
Okay. So it's a
we were
Sunday.
thinking noon Eastern time.
And man, where are you right now?
Amsterdam,
Oh,
in the Netherlands.
yes. Okay. Yeah, I have degenerative.
Lucky you.
Ceci heard you the first time. I have degenerative hearing and I didn't. So thank you for clarifying that. Anybody else? Show of hands. Who prefers earlier hours than later ones? Chris. Okay.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Okay. And who prefers later hours? Anybody? Okay. But like, what if we do it around 11-ish? Would you come at 11? Maybe?
I mean, noon. It was noon Eastern time.
Noon
I
Eastern
don't know
time?
what
Yeah,
time
so-
change he is.
okay.
So.
Okay. Well, everybody, I this is truly helpful for me, and I'm immensely grateful. I don't say that lightly, and I'm just thank you so much, and I hope I see you again on the 3rd of November.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Everybody wave. It's what all the professionals do at Dialogue.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Isaac, it's great to see all those Louisville Sluggers on your wall. I live in Louisville. It's great to see them.
Okay. Well,